Hello, I'm Olly and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, an update on my Read What You Own challenge. I've finished the first 20 books. So if you don't know, the Read What You Own challenge is something that has become an annual event for me and for other people as well. So a lot of other people take part in this. So this is a challenge where I read 100 books I already own before buying any new ones. And it's something I've started doing every year. It's kind of like a reset of my book buying, basically. My book buying tends to get out of hand, as it does for many people. And it's really enjoyable for me to pause and appreciate the books I've already got. I have far too many books that I haven't read, far more than 100. So yes, I've been working my way through some of those unread books and I've been really enjoying it. There have been some duds, but generally speaking, I've read a bunch of books, some of which I've had for absolutely ages, that I probably just wouldn't have got to otherwise. And that's the real joy of doing this Read What You Own challenge, is you discover books you'd forgotten you even had, and you have a great time with them often. So what I'm going to do is go through very quickly the 20 books I have read so far. I'm not going to talk about these books in depth because I've covered them all in weekly wrap-ups and monthly wrap-ups. So if you want to hear more about them, look back through the archives and you'll find more detailed videos where I talk about them. But I just wanted to go through them quickly. What you will notice though, when I hold up this stack is, and this isn't all of them because there are a few digital ones as well, is these are all quite short books. So the average length of the books I've read in the challenge this year has been 220 pages so far. Now I am currently reading 1,000-page book, so that will bump up the average a bit. But yeah, generally speaking, I have been reading shorter books, and that is, I'll be honest, that is completely deliberate. I do this challenge to appreciate books that I already had that I wouldn't have got to otherwise. I don't do it to punish myself. It's not an act of penitence, really. It's more an act of just going through my backlog of books and seeing what's there. But by choosing shorter books, I get through the challenge more quickly and am more likely to succeed at it. And I've succeeded at it every time that I've done it. But everyone will be different. Everyone will set themselves up for the challenge in different ways. My personal preference is to try and get through it quickly, because I found last year or earlier this year, when I did a second Read What You Own challenge immediately after after finishing the first one, I found that I came to begrudge it because it was steering my reading in certain directions, and there were books that I was getting frustrated that I couldn't read. So for me, 100 books, which normally takes me 2.5, 3 months, something like that, or maybe a bit more than that, 3 months-ish, that's about enough time to pause my book buying for without it getting, horrifically frustrating for me. Maybe it's 3 or 4 months, actually. That's probably more accurate. Anyway, let me quickly go through these books, and I'll tell you at the end my favourite that I've read so far. So the first was Macbolan Book 25, or The Execution of Book 25, Colorado Kill Zone by Don Pendleton, which I enjoyed very much. After that, we had an ebook, Rebel Moon Part 1 by V. Castro, which I think the subtitle is A Child of Our Time or something like that, which was enjoyable. It wasn't fantastic, but it was a decent read. Next, we had Space Babies by Alison Rumfitt, an adaptation of a Doctor Who episode. Next, we had Perry Rhodan Book 8 by Clarke Darlton, the Galactic Riddle. After that, we had a bit of crime, so The Sailcloth Shroud by Charles Williams, which is a really enjoyable kind of nautical thriller. Some more crime after that, but cosy crime this time, Agatha, Raisin and the Potted Gardener by MC Beaton. I'm very confident there'll be more Agatha Raisin books in my Read What You Own challenge before it ends. After that, another novelisation. So from this double charmed volume, I read Haunted by Desire by Cameron Dokey. So again, a quick throwaway read, but very enjoyable. And in a similar vein, after that, I read back-to-back 3 Sweet Valley High books with Francine Pascal's name on the cover, but actually written by Kate William. So we had Love and Death in London, Date with a Werewolf and Beware the Wolfman, all of which were very, very enjoyable. After that, this is a book I have had for probably 2 or 3 years. So this was very kindly sent to me by a viewer, and I just hadn't got around to it. And this is a great case of a book I'd just not, it just, for whatever reason, had never risen to the top of my TBR. And I'm so glad it did in this Read What You Own challenge. This is Bloodstander by Laird Barron, which was absolutely phenomenal. I've done a full review of this one if you're interested in that one. So a very dark, violent crime novel. After that, another book I'd had for absolutely ages, this time a Kindle one, that was Rumpole of the Bailey by John Mortimer. So I bought a Rumpole omnibus. So these are like short stories, but they're published in a bunch of different collections, and then there are omnibuses that collect the collections, if that makes sense. So I bought the first one on my Kindle a few years ago when it was in a deal, and had just never got around to it, but was looking through my through my digital library for things to read, and this one popped up, and I thought I'd give it a try, and it was really fun. So a book about like short stories about this lawyer, so slightly comic but quite interesting as well. After that, another Doctor Who one, Wild Blue Yonder by Mark Morris. This and the Alison Rumfitt one, more recent acquisitions, but still very, very enjoyable. Here's another one that was sent to me probably again a couple of years ago by the publisher. They sent me, like unsolicited, a box of books, including 3 by Joel Lane. So a British horror author who I'd kind of vaguely heard of, but mostly heard of recently through people on the channel talking about him in the comments. This was fantastically good. So this is The Witnesses Are Gone. So another book I might not have gotten to without the Read What You Own challenge. Next, a more recent acquisition. So I actually got this just before the challenge started. So Apartment 16 by Adam Nevill, a fantastic horror novel. Next, I think probably the oldest book I had, or the oldest book I've read so far in terms of the length of time I've had it. So this was a collection of short stories inspired by the video game LA Noire. So like published to coincide with that game coming out. And I think that game came out, I think I'm right in saying in 2014, so 10 years ago. And I think I must have got this collection around that time. I got it on Kindle when I'd in the very early days of me having a Kindle, I think, and it was great. A really solid collection, a couple of standout stories which are absolutely brilliant, but overall just an enjoyable collection of short crime stories. After that, probably the duddiest dud of the bunch, which was Neil Simon's Murder by Death by HRF Keating, which was another novelisation, but one that just didn't work. Next, a fun bit of cowboy trash, the Gunsmith book 319, Out of the Past by J.R. Roberts. So this again was a book that someone had sent me more recently than the other ones I talked about. A really enjoyable book, and fantastic in that J.R. Roberts, whose real name was, I think, Robert Randisi, wrote all of the books in the Gunslinger series, and there were like over 500 of them. So an incredibly prolific author. And then finally, a couple that I did get just before the challenge started. So one that I bought, one that was sent to me. So the one I bought was The Gathering by C.J. Tudor, a very enjoyable kind of mix of mystery novel and vampires. And then finally, the 20th book was May the Wolf Die by Elizabeth Hyder, which was a fantastic crime thriller. Really, really excellent debut novel. I enjoyed this enormously. So those are the things I've read so far for the Read What You Own challenge this year. And I think, as I've said a number of times in this video, the key thing is there are some books here that I just wouldn't have read otherwise. Some of them, like the Wolf Must Die, the Wolf May Die. Sorry, I'll put my teeth in. May the Wolf Die. This one, because it was been sent to me recently and it was one I really wanted to read, I would have read this anyway. But some of these books, like LA Noire, I almost certainly wouldn't have read without the challenge. So it's definitely worth doing if, like me, you've got a big backlog of books you just haven't managed to get to. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. Do let me know in the comments if you're taking part in the Read What You Own challenge and how it's going for you. I'll return with an update again, maybe in 20 books time, and let you know how I'm getting on. Anyway, I will leave it there and say, as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.